Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the February 27, 2025 meeting of the Chatham Finance Committee. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 23 signing of the Acts of 23 extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until March 31, 2025. This meeting of the Chatham Finance Committee is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. Reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress might do so by calling 508-945-4410, again 945-4410, and enter conference ID 948-520-354 #, 948-520-354 #, or one may join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. Well, this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV. Despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. So with that, we are going to continue our march through prospective bylaw amendments and articles for town meeting. And I'll start the process by having a roll call. Tommy Doan.
Here.
Barb Madison.
Here.
John Papalardo. Here. Joanne Sprague.
Here.
Andy Young.
Here.
Kristen Andres.
Here.
Tracy Shields.
Here.
Eric Whiteley.
Here.
Chair is here. We have a full house. Welcome, everybody. All right. So why don't we start with a proposed general bylaw amendment for stormwater management?
Mr. Chair, can I interrupt you for just 1 second, please?
Sure.
Every year at this time, I've mentioned when we talk about borrowing and sewer connection costs, I have mentioned that there is a way of recouping by tax credits. It used to be a fourth of the cost. Now, I handed to Carrie the new Schedule SC. Years ago, when I did mine in 2010, it was Schedule Z, which is, I've always mentioned. It's no longer Z, it's SC, and indeed, a taxpayer who is mandated to renew their septic system or rebuild it, or mandated to connect to the sewer, can collect a certain percentage in tax credit, a certain percentage of the cost of connecting to the sewer by tax credit over a period of 4 years. I did it. I gave my 2011 tax return to Carrie. So it is possible, but it's renewed, and they've increased, I believe, the percentage of the amount you can claim as a tax credit. And for everybody who knows this, a tax credit is like real dollars.
Yep.
So that's the last I have to say about it. It's now in the hands of the town. I'm sure it would be very helpful when we talk about the amount of money we have to put into our sewer and stormwater, whatever else we're working on. Thank you.
That's very helpful, John. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Okay, Carrie, stormwater management, who's on deck?
Stormwater management, I believe that is Rob Faley.
Rob is approaching the podium. Good afternoon, Rob.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rob Faley, Director of Public Works. So I don't have any fancy presentations on this, but I'll just talk through it for a few minutes, if you like. So Chatham stormwater discharges have been regulated under what we call the MS4 permit, which is the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, since its issuance in 2003. There were recent upgrades as recent as 2018, and that's the current MS4 permit that we're working under. Under that permit, it required Chatham to develop update a post-construction stormwater management ordinance. So to meet this requirement, Chatham adopted Chapter 238 in 2019, was part of the annual town meeting charter. And in December of 2024, recently, Chatham DPW promulgated stormwater management regulations to comply and supplement to meet the needs of this post-construction stormwater runoff. So basically, the proposed amendments to Chapter 238 are just adding a number of definitions. And I don't know if I don't think the red-lined version was in color, so I mean, I could list the definitions that were added. It's a common plan of development on page 2. That The biggest change with that is it identifies 1 acre of land disturbance. And that's actual earth disturbance, not if you had a 1 acre parcel. It's the actual earth that you're disturbing. But it also comes into play subdivisions. So subdivisions, even if each lot was sold individually and developed by a different developer, aggregately, all of that land disturbance would be that 1 acre threshold. That's probably the biggest change in the whole thing. On page 2, low impact development definition was added. I'm sorry, page 3. The maximum extent feasible definition was added, and the new development definition was added. Going to the next page, redevelopment definition was added, and soil disturbance definition was added. And I think there is just a few more changes, just very minor. It is in that section 238-10, requirements to prevent, control, and reduce stormwater pollutants by the use of best management practices. We just eliminated some text in there, and it just reflected where we stand now with that December 2024 promulgation. And I believe that's it. It's more of an administrative change than anything else to come into compliance with the needs of the permit.
Comments or questions? Andy, please.
Rob, do I understand correctly that this also affects private landowners if they are altering more than 1 acre of land?
If the actual earth disturbance is greater than 1 acre, yes. I mean, they need a number of other permits through the town for that. But yes, it would have to be actual earth disturbance of at least 1 acre.
Okay, all right. This is also going to overlap then with Planning Board, Conservation Commission, as applicable. I mean, a number of places.
Exactly, yep.
Okay. All right. Do we actually have to have an update to our NIPD's permit, do you know?
No, this comes into compliance with the current the NIPD's permit. I don't know, so I'm gonna rely on Greg Berman since he's here in the audience, and maybe he can bail me out of this question.
Dodging the bus.
Sure, Greg Berman, your Director of Natural Resources, and so the NIPD's permit isn't,
So Greg, before we start, can you define what the NIFTY permit is, or for everybody's edification, please?
non-point source,
National pollutant
Elimination.
discharge, elimination permit, or something like that.
between us, we can get there.
Close enough.
So the state is undergoing an update to the overall MS4 NIPD's. We'll get there. Our current MS4 is coming into compliance now with the current system. For the next annual review and report, we'll be getting up to the next level. But right now, everything is, as it should be.
All right, thank you. That's fine.
John, please.
Is there anything discretionary about the definitions that you've put in the document, or are they just required?
They're required. I mean, it's an EPA-driven ordinance, so we are just complying with what their requirements are.
There's no alternative language that could be offered up as a supplement? I'm thinking about landowners, property owners, and the potential increased cost of developing land that they own.
So this was the bare minimum to get us into compliance. The other options were more restrictive.
Okay.
And we did work with a consultant that has experience in many other communities, and they helped us get these rules and regs where we needed to be.
So just to be clear, I'm sorry, Kristen, do you have a?
Thank you. I was going to ask who helped with writing of the modification of the existing bylaw. One of the things that I just was noticing, and I, again, didn't really, it seems like it's really heavy on pollutants and not so much on stormwater. So I'm wondering if there's another place in town regulations that we are regulating or trying to take care of stormwater and not for instance, asking property owners to keep stormwater on their own properties so that particularly when new properties or new driveways are developed, that they're not shedding more stormwater into the public system. It seems to me that's, right off the bat, that's a best practice, and it seems like we don't enforce that anymore, and maybe it was never really a regulation. So that's one question I have, why that's not appears in here.
Well, I think it refers to the stormwater management regulations that were promulgated in December. And this is just the bylaw that refers back to that document. And there's, of course, it's Massachusetts best management practices for stormwater. We refer to that in the regulations as well. I think it does address it, just not explicitly in this document.
Yeah, and for the smaller parcels, this is really meant for the larger, greater than an acre of land disturbance parcels. I mean, there are some other stormwater, not per se stormwater regulations, like, as you know, in conservation jurisdiction, stormwater would certainly be looked at. But, you know, that's one reason why the stormwater regulations were placed in DPW versus in planning or conservation or something like that, because, you know, conservation doesn't have jurisdiction across town, it's only in our resource areas, so DPW has a broader reach.
John, please.
Will this have any implications on the Commerce Park Lake?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you know, there's no land disturbance there, you know, it's an existing situation, so we'd have to look at that. And it is private property at this point.
Andy, please.
Yeah, just briefly, quite a few years ago, a previous highway department head was adamant that new curb cuts onto a town road had to be such that they did not allow stormwater runoff onto the town road, because too often catch basins, if there were any, or discharge chutes, you know, we're just getting overloaded with it. That has definitely not been enforced for at least the last 10 years that I know of. And there are quite a few places that are just heavy rainstorm, they're flowing a tremendous amount of water off the private property onto the town road. I'm not sure, you know, what, if anything, Rob, you can do to, after the fact, to try to say, you know, you need to fix this. But I'd encourage us to try to do that.
Well, I would make an observation that one of the town's leading engineers, private engineers, is of the view that the lake in Commerce Park is partly due to the fact that the berm that used to be at the top of the park by 137.
Yes, yep.
It's just been kind of ground down, and the infiltration off of 137 is significant. I can't speak to the accuracy of that assertion, but pretty smart guy. Kristen, please.
If I could just follow up and affirm also what Andy said, I think that is, I was sort of dismayed. I was kind of all excited. It's like, oh, we're going to have a new stormwater bylaw in it. So clearly it's just the bare minimum. I think as we look at managing stormwater around the town, particularly from a community standpoint, and we still have a lot of those discharge areas that are just a paved asphalt chute down to a wetland in most cases. And so as a way to manage stormwater, it would be beneficial to the community as a whole and a best practice ecologically to have, to really try to have properties try to attain net zero runoff from their properties. Also dismayed to see that, according to this, it's no big deal washing your car in your driveway and allowing all that soapy water and whatever else to run down into public or private roads, which then enters into either a catch basin or not. So I would encourage the town to really, whatever department is supposed to pick this up, to really try to enforce that and improve our regulations and stormwater management in the community. Thanks.
Terrific. Thank you, Kristen. Other comments or questions? Okay. How do people feel about voting? Any reservations? It seems largely ministerial. To be clear, these are to bring the town's bylaws, to Kristen's point, kind of at a bare minimum into compliance with state requirements and ultimately federal mandates, correct?
And maybe to follow up with that, just
Please.
to let you
Yeah.
know, you know, the bare minimum was to get us there as quickly as possible. We weren't in compliance before this, and we were encouraged to get into compliance as quickly as possible. There may be room for additional things and looks at regulations afterwards, but this was the least we could do as fast as we could do it.
Second? Okay, so there's a proposal to amend the general bylaw, Chapter 238, revisions, municipal separate storm sewer system. Support, Tommy Doan,
Yes.
Barb Madison,
Yes.
John Papalardo,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Andy, Kristen,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Eric.
Yes.
Chairs in favor. 9-0. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, next up, I guess I have carriage of at Carrie's request.
Yes, general bylaw
Is a
amendment.
general bylaw amendment, Chapter 10, Boards, Committees, and Commissions. The town moderator, our appointing authority, and I have spoken over a number of years about the historic prohibition against finance committees serving on other ad hoc working groups and the like. And as I understand it from Bill Litchfield, that language in the bylaws dates back to a time when the Finance Committee was actually responsible for the budget. There's kind of a clear potential conflict of interest in serving on other commissions, committees, et cetera. And was the moderator's view that having some flexibility in that bylaw to allow certain members of the Finance Committee be appointed by the Select Board or otherwise would be a good thing. So that's the genesis of it. Happy to field any questions. It would not allow Finance Committee members to serve on what I think are the 10 standing committees in the town. But again, kind of ad hoc working groups and the like. So I'm happy to field any questions generally. There being none, I'd be happy to field a motion to support
So
the
moved.
bylaw as drafted by the town moderator.
Second.
And a second? All right, comments or questions? Support, Tommy,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Andy?
Yep.
Kristen?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair supports. 9-0. All right, thank you. Home rule petition to allow associate members of the Conservation Commission the power to vote in the case of an absence by voting members. Greg Berman.
Hello again. So this is a relatively brief article request. We have 7 members, 3 associates. Those associates are right now not able to vote. So if we have a lack of a quorum, a meeting would have to be canceled. This happened once in the last year. Very rarely happens, but due to the relatively high frequency of meetings, it was about 50 meetings in 2024. And, you know, if somebody gets sick for a month or goes out of town, it does get very difficult. We thought it would be reasonable to have our associates able to vote, not if we have a full quorum, but in order to make up a quorum. This is done in some other towns in Massachusetts already. We modeled the language after that, and it's been through town council.
Eric, please.
Can you just define for us the difference of what an associate member is in this case versus a regular voting member, and why there's been a difference in the past, why they're not allowed, haven't been allowed to vote in the past?
Sure, so I mean, the regular member is what you would think of as the Conservation Commission commissioner, the full voting member. The associate is present. They, you know, can weigh in, they can comment, but they can't vote. Right now, we actually don't have any associate members. It's been relatively difficult to fill it, at least since I've been here. I think if they had, you know, a little bit more reason to be, as it were. That if somebody was missing, they would be able to participate and serve a powerful use that might encourage more associates to join. And it's kind of like the farm league, where you kind of start off as an associate, get a feel for the ropes, and when an opening comes up, you can go up to a full Conservation Commission member.
Further comments or questions? Greg, I'm curious why this needs to go to the state. I would think this would be a local jurisdiction matter.
So it does have to go to the state. I would have thought so too, but it's very specifically in the, I don't think it's in the Wetland Protection Act, but our town council told us specifically it had to. I took him at his word.
Okay,
Makes sense.
by statute, yep. Okay, terrific. Other comments or questions? John, please.
Did you say that Conservation Commission met 50 times last year?
Those are just the public meetings. There's also planning meetings and other meetings associated. But yes, the public meetings, they're typically once a week, maybe, a week off for the holidays. But other than that, and several of our members hit all 50. I think all of them hit over 40, but you can just imagine with that kind of frequency, it can be difficult.
And those are volunteer positions.
Yes.
Doesn't that seem a little insane?
So not every Conservation Commission on Cape Cod meets that often. Some go every 2 weeks. I think part of the rationale was instead of having very long meetings every 2 weeks, this is a way to break it up and have slightly shorter meetings. There has been a relatively high number of notices of intents and hearing requests per Chatham compared to some of the other towns. And I believe that's why they prefer doing it this way. It spreads it out.
Is there, never mind. It's not really a Finance Committee question. I'm just intrigued by
Go for it.
splitting the committee, creating a larger committee, splitting it, and splitting the work that people need to cover. I mean, that's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, but it's a regulatory committee for the Wetlands Protection Act and our town bylaw. So it's not really conducive to splitting like that. And a lot of hearings will take more than one hearing, more than one meeting. I'm sorry, a particular applicant might have to go multiple times, and you need to have the same commissioner there for pretty much all the meetings in order to make it work. So if you start splitting, it gets difficult that way.
I can understand that, wanting to maintain the consistency of a particular set of commissioners to review a project through the process. But it sounds like there's a pretty heavy workload. So I was just thinking, I don't know what the number of commissioners is, but let's say it's five commissioners, and then you've got 5 alternates, which you said you're having trouble filling, and I think it's because of the workload with no ability to actually have a impact on the outcome of the project that's being reviewed by the commission. But if you ran 2 tracks so that half of the sworn-in members followed half the load through the year and half followed the other half of the projects through the year, that's a lot of work.
It is. It's a lot of work. They're dedicated volunteers. Right now, it's 7 voting members, 3 associates. So we would need, if we went 5 and 5, we'd need to get, backups for the backups at that point. And logistically, it would be very difficult to, maintain a trail of one project meeting with those same commissioners every time.
I understand.
Sometimes, if you're alternating weeks or something, it would be more difficult.
I understand. Thanks.
All right, Kristen, please.
Yes, we've notoriously been the busiest Conservation Commission forever. We were, I believe, the first Conservation Commission, at least on the Cape. And in any event, we've got, 66, 68 miles of shoreline. We have 37 ponds, and we have floodplain. So all of those areas, any work altering those places requires an application before the commission. So it's just the nature of where we are. And fortunately, we do have these wonderful people who are willing to be dedicated to that. I think the associates, this would be a very helpful thing. So I hope the state certainly approves it, and we have to support the Conservation Commission as best we can. And again, I note, we have another commission that gets a stipend still, and these folks get nothing. And they are out going to site visits for all their applications in addition to attending the meetings, in addition to doing, drafting orders of conditions and doing work outside. So it's an extreme commitment, and we're fortunate that people serve.
Don't let that commitment keep you from volunteering, especially as an associate.
Well, we have to get the bylaw, the bylaw passed allowing finance committee members to serve on other committees. Okay, further comments or questions for Greg? Little advertisement. Okay, there being none, then I'll take a motion to support special legislation for an act relative to the membership of the Conservation Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Tommy, support?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Andy?
Yep.
Kristen?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair supports. 9-0. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Carrie, do you want to do any introduction to the proposed 25-mile-per-hour speed limit?
Sure. So this is a general law, chapter 90, section 17C, 25-mile-per-hour speed limit change. This is to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 90, Section 17C, establishment of a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit in thickly settled areas or business district in a city or town. So this will change the 30 mile per hour to 25 mile per hour in the thickly settled areas. And we have Chief Anderson and Deputy Chief Lou Malzone here to go over this.
Terrific. Thank you, Carrie.
You're welcome.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Lou Malzone, Deputy Chief of Police. Make sure these slides work here. Just a little history of why we're here. Several months back, some members of the community had mentioned at a select board meeting about being able to adopt Chapter 90, Section 17C, which would lower the statutory speed limit in thickly settled from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour. The select board referred that to the Traffic Safety Committee to look into the process. The Traffic Safety Committee did their research and determined that the scope of this project was larger than the Traffic Safety Committee and really outside of what they're charged with, and they referred it back to the select board. I don't need to read this word to word for you, but in the thickly settled residential areas and business districts, right now, there is a statutory speed limit of 30 miles an hour. By adopting Chapter 90, Section 17C, the town would be able to lower the 30 mile an hour to 25 mile an hour. The state suggests that it's done town-wide, but the town does have an option to go road by road. Thickly settled or business district, the territory contiguous to any way which is built up with structures devoted to business, or the territory to any way where the dwelling houses are situated at such distances as will average less than 200 feet between them for a distance of a quarter mile. As you can see, the map, there's several streets in the town that are thickly settled. The only ones that the town really doesn't have control of is Route 28. It does say 137, but 137 is actually a town road. So we put together some stats to share, some data. In 2024, there were 669 motor vehicle stops, 520 verbal warnings, 149 citations were issued. Those included criminal applications, civil citations, arrests, and written warnings. As you can see, there is quite a bit of discretion used by the officers in determining whether to issue a cite or not. There was also 1,866 stationary traffic enforcement cases, which means when a cruiser on the side of the road running stationary radar. There was
several more radar cases, usually moving radar. The equipment in our cruisers allows us to actually monitor speed as well when the cruiser's moving. 2020 to 2024 motor vehicle crash data, there was 1,050 reported, which include minor property damage, major hit and runs, and crashes with injury. 850 of those were investigated. The reason there's a discrepancy is that not all crashes are reported at the time of the crash. There are times where people come in to report accidents that have happened in the past. So at that point, it's more of an information change or gathering. 590 minor motor vehicle accidents. The difference between a minor and a major is that to be considered a major, it has to be $1,000 of damage or more. As we know, everything's $1,000 now, so we're starting to see some of the minors turning into majors. A missing mirror on Main Street could be a major just because of the cost. 186 were hit and runs. Those were most likely possibly Main Street, side roads. 39 involved injury. There were 11 arrests made, 20 citations issued, 13 involved pedestrians, and 6 involved cyclists. Some more speed data, 2020 to 2024, 143 speeding citations were issued, and this is just a breakdown of the roadways, the major roadways where those sites were issued. There was also a lot of other areas in town, but those are some of the major areas of traffic enforcement. Beginning of the summer, the department received 2 new pieces of information. Both radar units. One has a digital display, which some of you may have seen attached to telephone poles around town, and one is a covert box, attaches to telephone poles, but there's no digital display on that. So we grabbed 2 pieces of information to bring for you. So Cedar Street from August 25th to September 4th, the posted speed limit's 30 miles an hour. From the 25th to the 4th, there were 7,518 vehicles surveyed. The average speed of the vehicles was 24.89. Vehicles over the speed limit was 22. The maximum speed was 51. The minimum speed was 10. Average vehicles per day, 751.8. And the 85th percentile speed was 30.21. The significance of the 85th percentile speed is if the state was to do a engineer traffic study, they go by the 85th percentile speed, they go by vehicle volume, number of crashes, and that's the number that they go by when they set the speed limit on roads. Another area that's highly traveled is Stepping Stones Road. So from September 12th to September 18th, there were 8,785 vehicles surveyed. Average speed was 27.69. 112 vehicles over the speed limit, max speed of 58, minimum speed of 10, 1,464.2 vehicles average per day, and 85th percentile is 33.68. That's the map showing in the areas in town that are thickly settled. As you can see, there's quite a few. Again, the only ones that the town does not have control over is Route 28. You want to talk about this one? Sure.
Hi again. So Chatham has just over 200 town roads currently. If we say we open up the floodgates and we have to sign every road, there may be some dead-end roads that we don't have to sign, but there are other roads, say like Old Queen Anne Road, that may have multiple thickly settled areas. So there'd be more than 2 signs on that road. So on average, I think we're talking about 400 signs around town. Not to say that cost should be a safety issue, but there is a consideration for cost. So looking at 400 signs, you're talking a little over $80,000 just in materials. The bigger impact to DPW is an hour and a half to install each sign. You're talking 600 hours of labor or 75 days of labor to get this accomplished. So So there is an impact to town staff and to the budget.
Thank you, Rob and Lou. Questions, Andy?
Rob, is that number in your operating budget for this proposed year?
It's not. My typical sign budget is $8,000 a year. This year I've asked for $12,000 just because we've been getting a lot of sign requests.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Tommy? Mr. 51?
This is for Lou. I was only doing 50. And I don't drive on Stepping Stones Road.
So I just want to mention the board hasn't voted on this one yet, so if you want to hold off on voting on this one.
I think we're itching to vote on this one, but I'll hold off.
Okay.
Other comments, questions? Tracy, please.
Just a comment. I think as time moves on here and cars have greater technology and are safer, the trend is that it's safer to go faster. I'm not a fan of making it a slower speed limit, and certainly not for this price tag or for the effort involved by the hardworking DPW.
Eric, please.
Yeah, I'm also not supportive of this, and it feels like from the presentation that, you know, we're kind of fixing something that isn't broken even with the data that we have here. And, you know, I think that the police do a great job, and you know, the verbal warning number there makes a lot of sense, and it's just, that would just go up if even change. So I don't think this is a necessary cost or effort that the town should undertake.
Kristen, please.
I'm wondering if you have any statistics on the signs that tell you how fast you're going and whether they're effective, because they get my attention. I know when I'm driving to work, there's some in other towns that, you know, like, slow down, you're a couple miles over the speed limit. So I'm wondering if those are effective and whether there would be, you know, if that would be an option.
The feedback that we've gotten about our digital display sign that we put up in different areas of town, that, you know, initially it does slow people down or makes them aware of their speed. You know, there are people that slow down when they see it, and believe it or not, there are people who speed up when they see them, to see if they're working or, but people, like on Cedar Street, there was, you know, some mention that some of the residents did feel like that it slowed vehicles down.
Joanne, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For $80-some thousand, from my point of view, it's worth it to keep our people safe on the streets. And I have noticed lately the new signs put up in front of the middle school. And those are wonderful, and I think we've been trying to get those for a long, long time. But anything like that it will do anything to make our people more safe, public safety-wise, I'm always going to be for. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Other comments? Tommy, please. Mr. 51.
Was the department surprised by any of that? Any of the data you received?
No.
I find it, I didn't realize that so many people were going 30 miles an hour or below.
Right, and the data shows that fortunately, the average motorist is going the speed limit or below. I certainly wouldn't stand in front of you and tell you that the 22 or the 112 going over isn't a problem, right? That's a problem, but that's why we have traffic enforcement.
So I would just observe, if my math is correct, if 22 incidents out of 7,518 is 0.29%. And 112 of 8785 is 0.1%. So to Eric's point, I think we're trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist. Do we have any sense, Rob, of what the labor would rough out to for this?
You mean in cost?
Yes.
You know, if I were to just take say an
600,
average.
600 person hours?
Yeah, I mean, say $50 an hour, you know, including benefits. What's the math on that?
300?
Stephen?
Eddie?
Yeah, there have been, 2 public forums on this?
Last night was the first.
That was the first. Is there another one planned?
The select board meeting next week.
Next week, okay, all right. Yep. How many people showed up? What was it like? Anybody beat you up? Nobody supported it? I don't know, I was just curious.
There were both. There were, I would say maybe there was 10 or 15 people in the audience. Some for it, some not for it.
Okay,
And also, like we mentioned last night, you know, there's always speed greater than reasonable.
yes,
So
Right.
although the speed limit is set at 30, and the example that we continue to use is, you know, 30 miles an hour on Ridgeville Road today is probably reasonable. 30 miles an hour on Ridgeville Road July 3rd,
Right.
when there's families and cyclists walking, you know, it probably would not be reasonable. So we can also use speed greater than reasonable when it comes to enforcement.
Okay, I see Selectman Castro has his hand up. Dean, observations?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to speak as an individual member of the Select Board. As you heard, we had the public forum last night, and there are individual circumstances with respect to different streets, like Stage Harbor Road, Cedar Street, Old Queen Anne Road, that were brought up by some of the abutting property owners. One of the aspects of the public forum that interested me, and I've had a couple of conversations now with Chief Anderson, and I think Kristen alluded to this in her question, is the deterrent effect of signage. I'm not talking about reducing the speed limit to 25, but signs like we have now on Old Comers Road. There is a speeding sign. It's flashing, I believe. It also has red and green. Red if you're over the speed limit, and green if you're okay. And they do serve a deterrence. And there really isn't any money in the budget right now to buy some more of these signs. And some of these signs can be fixed, and some can be mobile. So I just wanted to tell you, and I haven't really unveiled this to anybody, you know, publicly before. I am contemplating proposing an article for the warrant for this coming town meeting to appropriate a certain amount of money to be able to purchase some of these signs. And I think this could be a good step to see if we can calm some of the traffic. And there is speeding that does go on in these streets. I think we all acknowledge that. I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up. We're going to be discussing this on Tuesday night. I won't be able to propose that Tuesday night because it would have to be on the agenda. If I do propose something, it would probably be for an upcoming select board meeting before we close the warrant. But it seems to me we could have that in the toolbox to address some of the concerns in particular neighborhoods, as opposed to having an overall town-wide change in our speed limit. Some of the folks were recommending or requesting speed bumps, which is something I don't particularly care for, and those do or can present problems for snow removal and so forth. But I just wanted to give you that heads up. I know you're not going to. I understand you're not planning to take a vote on this, so you might want to wait until the select board thrashes this out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dean. Appreciate that. Joanne, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our taxpayers don't always show up at night because they're tired. They've been working all day. They pay their taxes to make sure we do what's right for them. And I've always believed and shall always believe that the government, meaning our town government, gets the taxes. It is the government's responsibility to keep our citizens safe. And I don't think we should quibble over $80,000 to keep each and every one of our citizens safe in their homes and our schools, and particularly on our streets. So that's my opinion.
Deputy Chief, does the department have an official perspective on this?
One thing I will mention before the chief answers that question is that these new pieces of equipment we have, we've really been able to leverage the technology. I just showed you a snapshot of some of the data we got. That data is broken down by the hour. So the 22 vehicles speeding on Cedar Street, we can see that they're between midnight and 4 in the morning. And that, during the day, the average motorist is going 30 miles an hour or less. So we're able to target those areas better by leveraging that technology. We know our resource probably isn't the best place to use it, being on Cedar Street at 11 in the morning when it shows that, 3,000 vehicles are doing 27 miles an hour. So that was just a quick snapshot, but that really allowed us to really target enforcement.
That's helpful, thank you. And that was a very artful handoff to Chief, too, so, well done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Mike Anderson, your police chief. It is the department's opinion, and the opinion of the department is based solely on the data. Let me be perfectly clear that my department, our department, is committed to the public safety of this community, personally and professionally. But it is the opinion of the police department, again, based on the data, that the current speed limits that exist in this town have not presented any significant compromise on your public safety.
That's very helpful, thank you. John, please.
Yeah, thanks. I think what would concern me the most, beyond the amount of dollars that we've been presented with in a worst-case scenario, if you had to re-sign the whole town, is that currently the data we have, and there's probably a lot more, shows we don't have a big problem with speeding in town. We may have selected times and areas, times a day, times a year, where there are issues. But I think if we were to go with a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit townwide, we would be setting up the majority of our drivers on a daily basis for an issue or a problem, having to be much more mindful of their speed. It tilts the burden onto the majority that aren't a problem. And I always have a problem with making a rule and managing to the lowest common denominator. I don't think that's good policy. The second thing is that I know that if we were to adopt the 25-mile-an-hour townwide speed limit, your office is going to get hammered. You need to have a cop here, you need to have a cop there, they're speeding, they're going over 25. It's not reasonable, and I don't support it.
Can I just ask a slide be brought back up on the board?
Please.
Mention that, Stepping Stones Road.
This, hold on, right here. No, go back. I'm sorry.
It's right here.
No, one more, I'm sorry. This one, right? When we look at these motor vehicle crashes, and whether what they would determine as a minor, major hit-and-run injury, and those are the enforcement actions that we've taken from the results of those, and maybe the 13 pedestrians and 6 bicyclists, the overwhelming majority of those motor vehicle crashes, whether they're minor, major, hit-and-run, or injury, the overwhelming majority of those crashes, speed was not the factor.
And also to your point, I think one of these slides, so the average speed was 27.69. That would show that all those motorists are now traveling over the speed limit. And again, just to go back to the speed greater than reasonable, there's a lot of areas that, there may be a perception of speed and a speed problem, maybe not a speed problem, but if it's speed's greater than reasonable, we are out there enforcing them, and we will continue to do that.
Thank you for that. Tracy, please.
I was just going to add that I think we all share a desire for public safety. But to me, it would seem that certainly for the first quite a while, it would present more danger to have all the people that come to this town in the summer that have been used to for years 30 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden there are people in front of them going 25, that would create, sometimes, at least my experience on the highway, driving slower is not safer. Those are the people that tend to create traffic incidents in my experience. And so I think that this is an example where slower doesn't necessarily mean safer, and certainly not during the transition period. It would be kind of a nightmare.
Thank you, Tracy. Barbara?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we're dying to spend some money on signs, I'm thinking that maybe a couple more signs in town that say it's a state law to stay 4 feet away from a pedestrian with a dog on the side of the road would be better spent.
Right, I know there is gonna be a campaign coming up to educate about the 4-foot law for cyclists and pedestrians. And, you know, I think that we'll continue to leverage technology. And, you know, as you will see by the, you know, the number of verbal warnings and written warnings that we get, that we're trying to educate, and some other traffic measures such as those radar signs might help to bring awareness and educate people as to what their speed is, and hopefully slow cars down.
All right, others?
There was some very good debate last night at the hearing. If you haven't seen it, I urge you to take a look at it.
We'll check that out, thank you. You know, I've been thinking a lot about this, and my wife and I have been talking about this as we drive through town, and she invariably drives faster than I do. It's just a fact, she does. You know, I tend to drive the speed limit, she tends to be 5 or 7 or 8 miles an hour over the speed limit. I don't know that having a bunch of signs saying 25 is necessarily gonna change anybody's behavior. I think if it's the middle of January and you're on Kroll Road, people are gonna, to lose point, gonna be driving a little faster than might be the case on the 4th of July. I think to Rob's observation that it's maybe $30,000 in labor, plus $81,000 for materials, $111,000 to solve a problem that the data suggests we don't have. There's no way I could possibly support this. So, Barbara, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. However, to Dean's point, I do think that the signs like on Old Comers Road, those make a huge difference to me. When I see the red, it's like, uh-oh, and the green, it's like, phew, I'm okay. I think those signs are much more effective than just these little
I didn't know
ones.
they had green.
One of the
Driving
things.
with Mary Beth too much.
One of the topics that originated from last night was just that. Somebody had asked, you know, well, I call the police and the police show up, and they do, you know, stationary traffic enforcement. When we arrive roadside, we said this last night, we've got about 5 or 10 minutes before our cover is blown and the headlights get flashed and you know, people know that where we are. Or the resident who lives maybe in a neighborhood that is not on this list of where the frequent speedings occur. You know, there are streets in town, like parts of South Chatham, that register on this data, but they're fractions of a percentage. But their complaints are still valid. So when we go and enforce, there's not a lot of violations to either see or observe or enforce. My point being, that person who makes the complaint, and then we go and put we assign an officer X amount of time to do this assignment, was that wasted time? That visibleness of that police car might only be 15 or 20 or 30 minutes. When we used to have that big radar trailer, that was a welcome sight in people's neighborhood. People would be put on a list because they want that deterrent device that is clearly visible. And whether it's a speed device, monitoring device that has a bright graphic like the ones that we've already installed with the red or the green, whether it's a temporary speed monitoring device that we have that shows your speed limit, that, in absence of a police vehicle, gives that resident, I think, an extra level of comfort, of maybe an extra measure of safety, and it certainly advises the motorist. But I know that, you know, we can't be at some of these remote locations for extended period of times, but if we have enough equipment to install permanently or temporary, that goes a long way.
Yeah, I think Dean's idea could be a very helpful compromise. So, all right, other comments or questions? All right, we'll let these fine gentlemen get back to work. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your time.
Beware of Old Comers Kroll and Old Queen Anne. All right, Carrie, anything further that we want to do?
Yes. On Tuesday night, the select board approved the operating budget and the capital budget. So, and we received a transmittal letter from the town manager as well. So if you want to vote on those, and they also voted on the CPC articles as well. So if you'd like to vote on the operating budget, the 5-year capital budget, and the CPC articles, I can go through those for you.
That'd be terrific, I think. What do y'all, why not knock them down?
All right, so.
Thank you.
I'll just read over this. The following is an update on the town manager's preliminary fiscal year 2026 budget summary and budget recommendations transmittal for FY 2026. Presented January 21st, 2025. So FY 2026 operating budget is refined and is presented at $44,154,028 versus the $43,921,522. That's without the education assessments, and for an increase of 8.19% versus the 7.62% over FY 2025. The FY 2026 operating budget with the education assessments is a total of $55,959,395, a combined increase of 8.25% over 2025. I will go over, there's actually only one change to the operating budget, and that was to the retirement assessment in the amount of $232,000.
And Carrie, to be clear, there's only one change to the operating budget that was presented to the committee, correct?
Correct. For that, and that's for the town operating budget, not including education. The education changes were, but you won't be voting on education today, but I'll go over the changes with you. Monomoy Regional School District, the assessment went up $89,000 compared to, the original assessment was $11,130,839, which was at 7.97%, and it's now at $11,217,418, which is an increase of 8.81%. The Cape Cod Regional Technical High School actually went down around $16,000. I had estimated an amount around $604,000, and their assessment came in at $587,000. Their increase is 2.17% for Chatham. It wasn't much of a change. As far as the capital, there was one change to the capital, and that was for a replacement of a 2005 dump truck in the amount of $220,000. But it's actually being offset with an article that was approved last year for a roll-off truck in the amount of $361,000. So we're actually going to be using less free cash for the capital article than what was previously.
And getting two trucks or just a roll-off?
I'm sorry, what?
And getting two trucks or just a roll-off?
So we're using the funds that were approved last year, the 361 that was raised and appropriate in the capital to get the 2005 dump truck
Okay.
instead. Yeah,
And does that mean we're not getting the roll-off truck?
right. So Rob Bailey, oh, he already left. There is a roll-off truck that is currently being used, and they use it for their transfer of sludge, I believe, that's what it is. So we are not gonna be using that truck anymore for that purpose. We're gonna be getting a contract that's actually cheaper with another company, and they're gonna be using their truck for the sludge.
Good.
So we'll have the roll-off truck
Truck, yep.
available
Okay, terrific, thank you.
I believe that was part of the presentation.
Yes,
When it
it
came to
was.
us, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I missed that one, sorry.
So the capital was originally, let me see, do I have that change in here listed? Yes, I do. Originally, it was 2.9 million, and now it's 3.1 million. However, we are using less free cash for this. We're using the roll-off truck in place of that.
Okay,
So, I don't know, do you want to take a vote on the
comments or
operating?
questions for Carrie? Joanne, please.
I still would like to see a compilation of the increase on the tax rate. I know you said I could figure it by using the number, dividing all that in. I don't think so. I think we owe the public who's watching
So
us
the
some
operating-
idea.
So the operating budget alone, just for the 44 million, is, I think, 288 on the tax rate.
Okay,
288 on the tax rate.
so what are we up to by now
What did we say?
for FY '26?
So we have 288 plus I believe it was 14 cents that we voted the last time, 302.
So we're at a tax rate of
302
per thousand of a
for everything that's been.
medium-priced home
Yep,
so far.
so far.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anything further, Carrie?
I don't have anything further unless you guys.
Okay,
want me
any
to
comments or
go?
questions? Andy, please?
Gone through the CPC articles and has approved all of them?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
And we'll hit those next.
And now I want to sort of keep things in my head lined up.
Yep, so, sorry, go ahead, Andy.
I'm perfectly ready to vote on the operating and the capital.
Carrie, can you just provide the new figures, adjusted figures?
Yep, so the town operating budget for FY 2026 is $44,154,028.
And capital, please?
Capital is $3,162,650.
Okay, thank you. So let's just start with the operating. I'll take a motion to support the proposed operating budget in the amount of $44,154,028.
Second.
Thank you, Tommy. Support, Tommy?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair supports. Capital budget, as presented, $3,162,650. Tracy?
Mr. Chair, just as a matter of confusion, it looks like what you were saying was that the capital budget should have decreased from what we had thought it was going to be, but it looks like it was at 2.942.
So it increased by the 220,000, but the funding has decreased. So we're using the 361 for the roll-off truck, from the roll-off truck, and then we're going to use yet less free cash that we were going to use before. Does that kind of?
So the spend went up.
The spend went up, but the amount of free cash that we're going to be using, because we had something else that was available to use. Yeah.
Okay. Everybody good? Motion to support the capital budget. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Support, Tommy?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair supports. All right, Carrie, that's a quick $47 million on
Thank you.
top of the $32 million we did on Tuesday.
Yes. Okay, so the CPC articles, you guys have already seen these. So we have the admin budget for 15,000, the 10% reserve fund allocation in the amount of 420, affordable housing trust in the amount of 500,000, the Stallneck Painting Preservation for 408,000, Nickerson Family Association Historic Barn in the amount of 275,000, Union Cemetery restoration for $50,035. Field studies to preserve open space for salt marshes in the amount of $140,000. Town of Chatham 2025 Open Space and Recreation Plan in the amount of $50,000, and Little Mill Pond Pier Reconstruction Project in the amount of $500,000, for a total amount of $2,358,035.
Sorry, carry that number again, too.
$2,358,035.
Okay, so a question for the committee. Would you like to vote on these individually? Would you like to vote on them in the aggregate? Is there anything controversial here that people want to call out? I'm happy to go either way. John, please.
I'd prefer to vote on them as a package. If a fellow member wants to call one out, we can pull it out, but
It'll be like town meeting, the consent calendar. Any objections to voting as a package from anybody? Don't be bashful.
No
Okay.
problem.
Barbara?
Could I just ask what that Stallneck painting preservation is? I missed the meeting where we went over this. What is that?
The Alice Stallneck paintings at the Historical Society
Okay,
mural barn.
that's right, that's-
The restoration of those. And I have a call into Kevin Wright, as I said, on Tuesday, to talk to him about that and who the restorer is going to be, so more to come on that front. I think that was a very important point that somebody raised, so thank you for that.
Consent
Okay,
calendar.
well, if that's, I'm sorry, Andy?
Consent calendar.
There we go. Motion to support the entirety of the CPC proposed article and allocations.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. In support, Tommy?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair supports.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, that's good. Sweeping the floor a little bit. So, just a brief update. We had an OPEB trustees meeting yesterday with myself, Dean Castro, Carrie, Sharon Drown, the town treasurer. Joe was there. We were all remote. Did I miss anybody? Jeff was on vacation, so it was a good meeting. I think this committee knows, and hopefully the town residents know, that we've, as a board of trustees, have taken this matter much more seriously over the last, half a dozen years or more, between dedicating half of the land bank surcharge of 1.5% to it and the annual overlay funding of $150,000. We are now up to just a tick over $7 million in the account. We have contributed $5.2 million since October of 13, when we first hired Bartholomew to serve as our managers of these funds. We've had a 6.21% total return over that time, which is good. I mean, historically, equities in the United States over the last 100 years have returned a tick over 7%, but we had a couple of rough years between COVID and 22. Our portfolio generally is 70% equity, 20% fixed income, and roughly 10% in alternatives. We may have a discussion on a going forward basis about bumping up the alternatives slightly. More to come on that, but we are at a 41% funding rate, which I think pretty easily is top decile in the state. There are a number of smaller communities out west that may have, 50 people and an obligation of $300,000, and they've got 200 put aside, but for kind of more significantly staffed and enterprises, we're in a very good position relative to our peers. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. Joanne, please.
Mr. Chair, what are alternatives?
Alternatives are typically non-correlated investments. So historically, stocks go up, bond prices go down. There's a correlation in the last few years. They've both gone up. Alternative investments can be raw materials, could be timber, mineral rights, commodities, oil, and they tend to have returns that historically have been uncorrelated to the broader market. So it's a way, property, real estate, it's a way of, again, just enhancing your return through an uncorrelated asset group.
Thank you.
Yeah. Dean, anything to add, or Carrie?
I was going to inquire about something unrelated, but yes, I think you gave a good summary of the OPEB trustees meeting yesterday, and I guess I would just add that our plan is to have a regular quarterly meeting schedule of the trustees to review the investments with with Bartholomew. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. John, please.
Well, I appreciate the report, and I take comfort in the fact that we've made a lot of ground on our obligation. I think the trustees should, receive some congratulations from the broader community, because at least when I started here at this table, that was a serious concern for me, how far behind we were. So you seem to have pulled it off in a way that didn't cause us to wish we hadn't done it. We didn't forego anything that I can think of in order to accomplish that goal. It just, you focused on it, and I think we're in a good position. So
Well, we had the support of the community through the land bank, vote, and I will note that Dean is exactly right. I mean, we're fiduciaries of these funds, and a quarterly meeting is best practices. We haven't always done that. We usually probably get together 3 times a year, but we're going to institute a more rigorous quarterly calendar. I think that said, I don't necessarily anticipate, and I'll defer to Carrie and to Dean as well, significant movements in our investment profile and our portfolio structure. After the 22 wipeout and COVID, we didn't make any changes to it, and this is a long-term investment for a long-term obligation. And, slow and steady is the way to go. We started at a 50-50 allocation between equities and debt. Over the first 3 or 4 years of that, we slowly moved to a 60-40 and now to a 70-30. And I think we're all generally comfortable with that. If we can tweak that return profile a little bit by adding, just a little more exposure to the alternates, we may consider doing that. But the establishment of calendared quarterly meetings doesn't necessarily suggest we're going to be, buying Foghorn Leghorn memorabilia and hoping for the best. So, all right. Anything further from anybody? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Stephen?
Dean?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question, but before I do that, apropos of the signage issue that you were talking about earlier with the 2 police chiefs, this type of sign that's on Old Comers Road that I was referring to, I got the information from Rob Faley this morning. It costs, an individual sign like that costs $3,500. So I'm going to factor that into my thinking in terms of what I might be proposing as a new warrant article to be able to purchase some of those signs, which I think are a good deterrent to whatever the speed limit is. I wanted to ask a question. I noticed that on your agenda for the 4th that Carrie sent around this morning are included several the refiling of several home rule petitions, 3 of which relate to housing. I'm asking this as an individual board member. Are you planning to take votes on those? Because I think you should be aware that the select board will not be taking those up as it currently stands until the 11th of March.
Yeah, so the short answer to that will be no. We'll vote on those after, we'll vote on those after you guys do.
Great.
Professional courtesy. So, okay, anything else? Anybody?
One more question,
Yes,
Mr.
please.
Chair.
Please.
Carrie, when you say Director of Veteran Services, do you mean he's going to be here? And what is the new director's name? I guess he's not new, but it's not Remillard anymore.
His name is, Greg. Is it Greg? Hold on one second. Let me get you the, I know his last name is Quilty. Greg Quilty.
And does he cover the whole Cape?
Oh, do you know who that is? Yes, he's the regional veterans,
Good.
yeah.
That's great, because he can explain to us some of the
Yeah,
benefits.
I'm actually looking forward to.
Yes, and I am too.
you know,
Thank you.
That'd be
Thank you
terrific.
for having him.
Yeah.
Thank you for arranging that.
Yep, you're welcome.
Okay, anything else from the right wing of the podium, the dais? Okay. All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second,
I seconded. Tommy,
Yes.
Barbara,
yes.
John,
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Eric?
We have fun over here too, just so you know. Yeah, yes.
Chair supports. Thank you all very much. Carrie, well done, thanks.